The big space station hung in the darkness between the stars like a metal city. Ships from dozens of alien races moved around it like busy insects. The station was neutral ground where the galaxy's most powerful species came to talk and make deals. Today was special. The humans were coming. Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the human ship called Harmony and watched the station grow larger through the windows. He was tall and calm, wearing a dark blue uniform that looked simple but well made. His brown hair was cut short and his green eyes missed nothing. Behind him stood two other humans who would help him with this important meeting. Dr. Lisa Morgan was smaller than Jake, but just as focused. She had blonde hair pulled back tight and carried a computer tablet that held more information than most alien libraries. Her job was to study the aliens and understand how they thought. She was very good at her job. Commander Rick Torres was the third human. He was built like a soldier and moved like one too. His black hair had gray at the edges and his dark eyes were always watching for danger. He did not say much, but when he did speak, others listened. His job was to keep the other two humans safe, but everyone knew he could do much more than that. The Harmony was not the biggest ship at the station, but it was different. While other species built their ships to look scary or beautiful, humans built theirs to work well. The ship had clean lines and no wasted space. Every part had a purpose. The aliens who saw it were not sure what to think. Inside the station's main meeting hall, representatives from the galaxy's most powerful races waited. They had done this many times before. A new species would come, usually scared and asking for help. The new species would offer gifts and promise to obey the rules. Then the powerful races would decide what to do with them. The Zephyrians controlled much of the eastern part of the galaxy. They looked like giant insects with 4 arms and hard shells. Their leader here was High Counselor HFY, who clicked his mouth parts when he talked. He thought this meeting would be quick and easy. The Korath Empire ruled through fear and strength. They were large reptiles with sharp teeth and claws. Their scales changed color with their moods. The Korath representative hissed softly as he waited. He enjoyed watching weak species beg for protection. The Nexari were beings made of pure energy who lived inside special suits. They glowed with different colors and could float in the air. They thought they were smarter than everyone else because they had given up physical bodies long ago. Their representative pulsed with proud blue light. There were others too. The meeting hall was full of aliens who had been ruling the galaxy for thousands of years. They all expected the same thing from the humans that they had gotten from every other new species. When the human ship docked, the aliens watched the security cameras with interest. Most new species sent large groups with many guards and servants. The humans sent only 3 people. Most new species dressed in fancy robes or wore heavy armor. The humans wore simple uniforms. Most new species carried gifts and treasures. The humans carried only small bags. Jake Harrison walked into the meeting hall like he owned it. He did not look nervous or scared. He did not bow or show respect to the powerful aliens. He simply walked to the center of the room, looked around at all the different species and smiled. That smile made several aliens step backward without knowing why. It was not mean or threatening. It was confident. It was the smile of someone who knew something others did not. Dr. Morgan followed behind Jake, her eyes moving quickly as she studied each alien in the room. She was recording everything with devices hidden in her uniform. She wanted to learn how each species moved, how they talked, and what made them nervous. Commander Torres came last. He did not carry any weapons that the aliens could see, but somehow he made them all think of danger anyway. He stood where he could see all the exits and keep watch over his teammates. High Counselor HFY stepped forward. His forearms moved as he clicked his greeting in the common language that most galaxy species used. Welcome, humans. We are happy to meet your kind. We hope you come here seeking the protection and wisdom of the established powers. The other aliens nodded or made sounds of agreement. This was how it always started. The new species would thank them and ask to join the galaxy as a junior member. Jake Harrison's smile got a little wider. Thank you for having us. Actually, we came here to discuss terms. The room got very quiet. HFY's mandibles clicked in confusion. Terms we do not understand. Young species do not make terms. They accept what they are offered. That's interesting, Jake said, still smiling. On Earth we have a saying. When you assume something, you make problems for everyone involved. Dr. Morgan stepped forward and turned on her tablet. A hologram appeared in the air above the device showing a map of local space. But it was not just any map. It showed things that should have been secret. Trade routes between worlds, hidden military bases, resource mining operations that were supposed to be classified. The aliens stared at the display with growing alarm. How could these humans know such things? They had only been in space for a short time. They should not have access to this kind of information. "We've been busy since we achieved faster than light travel," Lisa said in a cheerful voice that did not match the deadly serious information she was showing. "Humans are naturally curious. We like to learn about our neighbors." The Korath representative's scales turned a dark red color that meant anger and fear. "How did you get this information?" "This data is restricted to the highest levels of government," we asked nicely, Jake said with that same calm smile. Commander Torres had not said anything yet, but now he spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the room like he was giving orders to soldiers. "Humans are good students. We learn fast and we remember everything we learn." The aliens looked at each other with growing concern. This was not going the way these meetings usually went. These humans were not acting like a weak new species. They were acting like equals. Or worse, like they thought they were in charge. The meeting that was supposed to be a simple welcome ceremony had become something much more dangerous. The galaxy's most powerful races were starting to realize that the humans might be more than they seemed. And Jake Harrison's smile suggested that this was exactly what he had planned all along. 3 days had passed since the humans arrived at the neutral station. The alien representatives had expected the meetings to be over by now. Usually new species signed agreements quickly and left with their new status as junior members of galactic society. But the humans were still there, still asking questions and still acting like they belonged. Jake Harrison sat across from a group of alien diplomats in one of the station's smaller meeting rooms. He had been asking the same kinds of questions for hours, but he never seemed to get tired. His notebook was full of careful writing and his smile never went away. "Tell me more about your trade agreements with the Outer Rim worlds," Jake said to the Nexari representative, the energy being pulsed yellow, which meant it was getting annoyed. "These matters are complex," the Nexari replied. Its voice came from speakers in its containment suit. "Young species do not need to worry about such things until they have proven themselves." "I'm sure they are complex," Jake agreed. "That's why I'm trying to understand them better. On Earth, we believe that knowledge helps everyone make better decisions." Dr. Lisa Morgan was in another room talking with a Zephyrian trade official. She had been asking questions about shipping routes and cargo manifests. The Zephyrian was clicking its mandibles in irritation. "Why do humans need to know about cargo schedules?" the alien asked. "Your worlds produce nothing that interests the greater galaxy." Lisa looked up from her tablet where she had been taking notes. "We're planning ahead. Humans always think about the future. We want to know how we can best contribute to galactic trade." The Zephyrian did not like this answer, but it could not think of a good reason to refuse. After all, the human was only asking about trade routes. What harm could there be in that? In the station's military briefing room, Commander Rick Torres was having a different kind of conversation. He sat across from a Korath general whose scales were dark green with stress. "Your species has an impressive military history," Torres said, reading from a file on his tablet. 17 successful conquest campaigns in the last century alone. The Korath general puffed up with pride. "The Korath Empire knows how to deal with enemies. We are warriors born for battle." "I can see that," Torres replied. "Your battle cruisers are particularly impressive. Those plasma cannons must be devastating against most opponents. They turn enemy ships into space dust," the general boasted. "No species has ever developed effective defenses against Korath plasma weapons." Torres nodded and made some notes. "What about fighters? Small, fast attack craft? Fighters." The general laughed, which sounded like rocks grinding together. "Fighters are toys. Real warriors use real ships for real battles." "Interesting philosophy," Torres said, making more notes. By the end of the 3rd day, the aliens were getting worried. The humans had talked to representatives from every major species. They had asked questions about everything from military tactics to trade routes to industrial capacity, but they had not made any offers or requests of their own. High Counselor VexHy called an emergency meeting of the major powers. The alien leaders gathered in a secure room where they thought the humans could not hear them. "Something is wrong with these humans," VexHy clicked urgently. "They are not behaving like other new species." The Korath general was still angry about his conversation with Torres. "The human commander asked too many questions about our military. Questions that a peaceful species should not care about. The female human wanted to know about our trade networks, added the Zephyrian official. She has been mapping our shipping routes and asking about cargo capacities. The Nexari representative pulsed red with alarm. Their leader keeps asking about political relationships between our species. He wants to know about old conflicts and current tensions. What are they planning? Asked a delegate from the hegemony, a group of smaller species that work together. Why do they need all this information? Nobody had a good answer. The humans were being perfectly polite. They were not making demands or threats. They were just asking questions and taking notes. But somehow that felt more dangerous than anything the aliens had ever encountered before. Back in their quarters on the Harmony, the three humans were sharing what they had learned. Jake sat at a desk covered with papers and electronic devices. Lisa worked at a computer that showed charts and graphs of alien shipping patterns. Torres cleaned and checked equipment that was definitely not diplomatic in nature. The Korath are overconfident, Torres reported. They rely too much on big ships and heavy weapons. They have no experience fighting against small, fast attacks. Their trade networks are more fragile than they want to admit, Lisa added. Everything depends on a few major shipping routes. If those routes were disrupted, their whole economy would collapse. Jake nodded as he wrote in his notebook. The political situation is unstable too. The major powers don't trust each other. They work together because they have to, not because they want to. So what's our next move? Torres asked. Jake looked up from his writing. His green eyes were as calm as always, but there was something harder in them now. Tomorrow we start the real negotiations. The next morning, the aliens gathered in the main meeting hall again. They had decided to be more direct with the humans. It was time to end these strange games and get back to normal procedures. High Counselor HFY stood in the center of the room. His forearms spread wide in a gesture that was supposed to look welcoming, but felt more like a threat. Humans, we have been patient with your questions. But now it is time to discuss your place in galactic society. Jake Harrison walked into the room with Lisa and Torres behind him. He looked around at all the aliens, that same calm smile on his face. Perfect timing. We were just finishing our research. Research? The Nexari representative pulsed orange with confusion. What research? Dr. Morgan stepped forward with her tablet. The hologram that appeared above it was much more detailed than the one from 3 days ago. It showed not just trade routes and military bases, but something much more disturbing. It showed weaknesses. We've been studying how your civilizations work, Lisa explained in the same cheerful voice she always used. It's fascinating how complex systems can have such simple failure points. The room went very quiet. The aliens stared at the hologram showing their most sensitive strategic information that should have been impossible for outsiders to obtain. Commander Torres spoke for the second time since arriving at the station. The thing about humans is that we're very good at finding problems and solving them. Sometimes we solve problems that other people didn't even know they had. Jake Harrison stepped forward, his hands clasped behind his back like an officer giving a briefing. The galaxy has been very stable for a long time. Same species in charge, same trade routes, same political arrangements. But stable systems can become fragile systems if they don't adapt. What are you saying? HFY demanded, his mandibles clicking rapidly with agitation. Jake's smile never wavered. We're saying that change is coming whether you want it or not. The only question is whether that change happens peacefully or not. The aliens looked at each other with growing alarm. These humans were not here to ask for permission to join galactic society. They were here to announce that they were changing it. The morning of the 4th day brought an ultimatum. High Counselor HFY had spent the night talking with the other alien leaders. They had reached a decision that they thought would end this strange situation once and for all. The main meeting hall was packed with representatives from every major species in the local galaxy. They stood in their formal ranks, showing the power and unity that had kept them in control for thousands of years. At the center of it all, HFY clicked his mandibles as he prepared to speak. Jake Harrison entered the room with his usual calm confidence. Dr. Morgan and Commander Torres walked beside him, their faces showing no concern about facing down the combined might of galactic civilization. They took their places in the center of the room, surrounded by aliens who could destroy entire worlds. Humans, HFY began, his forearms spread wide in a gesture that was clearly meant to intimidate. We have been patient with your questions and your unusual behavior. But patience has limits. It is time for you to choose your path. The Korath general stepped forward, his red and black scales glowing with battle-ready anger. You will accept client species status under the protection of the established powers. You will follow our guidance and obey our rules. This is how the galaxy works. This is how it has always worked. A Nexari representative floated higher in the air, pulsing with authoritative purple light. Your species will be given worlds to settle and resources to use. In return, you will provide whatever services we require. This is a generous offer for such a young civilization. Other aliens added their voices to the ultimatum. The terms were clear and non-negotiable. Humanity would become a junior member of galactic society, taking orders from their betters and grateful for whatever scraps they were thrown. It was the same deal every new species had accepted for millennia. Jake listened to it all with that same infuriating smile. When the aliens finished talking, he turned to look at Dr. Morgan. Lisa, would you mind showing our new friends what we've learned about local space? Lisa stepped forward and activated her tablet. The hologram that appeared above the device was bigger and more detailed than anything she had shown before. It was a complete three-dimensional map of the Kepler 442 system, showing every ship, every station, every defensive platform in perfect detail. But it was not just a map. It was a tactical analysis. Red dots marked weapon emplacements. Yellow lines showed patrol routes. Green areas indicated blind spots in the defensive coverage. Every single weakness in the system's defenses was highlighted and cataloged. The aliens stared at the display in growing horror. This was information that should have been impossible to obtain. The humans had been at the station for only 4 days. How could they have mapped the entire system so completely? Interesting defensive setup, Lisa said conversationally as if she were discussing the weather. Very traditional. Lots of big guns pointed outward to stop attacking fleets, but not much coverage for small, fast-moving objects that might already be inside the perimeter. Commander Torres stepped forward for the first time during the meeting. His movement caused every alien guard in the room to tense up and reach for their weapons. Torres noticed this and smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. The power coupling nodes on your defensive platforms have a design flaw, Torres said, his quiet voice somehow filling the entire room. They're vulnerable to electromagnetic pulse weapons. A properly tuned EMP burst could disable an entire defensive grid in minutes. The silence that followed was absolute. Every alien in the room understood what they were hearing. The humans had not just mapped the system's defenses. They had found ways to destroy them. High Counselor Vexhi's mandibles clicked frantically. How did you obtain this information? Our security protocols are the most advanced in the galaxy. Jake Harrison clasped his hands behind his back and walked slowly around the room, looking at each alien delegation in turn. The thing about humans is that we're naturally curious. When we see something interesting, we want to understand how it works. You've been spying on us, the Korath general accused, his scales now bright red with rage. We've been learning, Jake corrected. There's a difference. Spying implies secrecy and deception. We've been quite open about our desire to understand our new neighbors. Dr. Morgan touched her tablet again. The hologram changed to show different information. Now it displayed the locations and movements of every major fleet in the local area. Korath battle cruisers, Zephyrian hive ships, Nexari energy platforms, all of them tracked and analyzed with disturbing precision. We've also been studying your military doctrines, Lisa said with academic interest. Each species has developed tactics based on their own strengths and experiences. But those same tactics create predictable patterns that can be exploited, Torres added helpfully. The hologram changed again, showing combat simulations. Small human ships darted between massive alien battleships like insects around giants. The simulations showed how speed and unpredictability could defeat size and firepower, how coordinated swarm attacks could overwhelm traditional defenses, how the aliens' own strengths could be turned against them. This is theoretical, the Nexari representative protested, but its light had dimmed to a worried pale blue. You cannot know how your untested ships would perform in real combat. Jake Harrison stopped walking and turned to face the assembled aliens. His smile was gone now, replaced by something much more serious. You're right. We can't know for certain how real combat would go. That's why we hope it never comes to that. But you're prepared for it, Vexhi stated rather than asked. We're prepared for many things, Jake replied. Humans learned long ago that the best way to avoid a fight is to be ready for one. Commander Torres stepped closer to the hologram, studying the tactical displays with professional interest. Your species have been fighting the same kinds of wars for thousands of years. Big fleets shooting at other big fleets. Honorable combat between equals. But humans don't fight that way. How do humans fight? The Korath general demanded. Torres looked at him directly, and the alien warrior felt something cold run down his spine. Humans fight to win. Everything else is secondary. Dr. Morgan added more information to the display. Now it showed human colonies throughout the local arm of the galaxy. What had looked like random exploration and peaceful settlement revealed itself as something much more strategic. Every human world was positioned to control a vital resource or strategic location. Over the past 50 years, while everyone thought humans were just exploring and settling new worlds, we were actually building something, Lisa explained. A network of bases, supply depots, and industrial centers, each one chosen for maximum strategic value. The implications hit the alien delegates like physical blows. The humans had not stumbled into galactic society by accident. They had been planning this moment for decades. Everything they had done, every colony they had established, every treaty they had signed had been part of a larger strategy. "You've been planning this from the beginning," HFY said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We've been planning for many possibilities," Jake corrected, including the possibility that established powers might not want to share. The room filled with angry voices as alien representatives shouted protests and accusations. How dare these newcomers threaten the established order? Who did they think they were to challenge civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millennia? Jake Harrison raised one hand and somehow the room fell silent again. When he spoke, his voice carried absolute authority. "We're not here to threaten anyone. We're here to offer you a choice." "What choice?" HFY asked, though he was not sure he wanted to hear the answer. Jake looked around the room one more time, meeting the eyes of every major alien leader. "You can accept humanity as an equal partner in galactic affairs, with all the rights and responsibilities that implies. Or you can try to force us into submission and discover what happens when humans stop being diplomatic." The threat was clear, without being stated directly. The humans had shown they could cripple the system's defenses, track every military movement, and exploit weaknesses that the aliens never knew existed. And they had done it all while pretending to be peaceful diplomats asking questions. "This is blackmail," the Korath general snarled. "This is negotiation," Jake replied calmly. "We're giving you all the information you need to make an informed decision. What you do with that information is up to you." The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted through the night. Behind closed doors, the major powers argued and threatened and planned. But every simulation their military advisors ran reached the same disturbing conclusion. The humans were right about everything. Jake Harrison spent that night in his quarters aboard the Harmony, reading reports from Earth and the human colonies. Dr. Morgan worked at her computers, analyzing data from their conversations with the aliens. Commander Torres cleaned and checked equipment that definitely was not meant for diplomatic missions. When the sun rose over the neutral station, Jake knew the aliens would want another meeting. They would have spent the night trying to find flaws in the human analysis, looking for ways to prove that their traditional advantages still mattered. They would be disappointed. The meeting room was smaller this time. Only the most senior representatives from each major power attended. They looked tired and worried, but still determined to find a way out of this situation that did not involve treating humans as equals. High Counselor HFY spoke first, his mandibles clicking nervously. "We have reviewed your tactical analysis. Our military experts believe you are overconfident. Paper theories do not always work in real battles." Jake nodded politely. "You're absolutely right. That's why we brought some practical examples." Dr. Morgan activated her tablet and a new hologram appeared. This one showed historical battles from human wars, ancient conflicts where small forces had defeated much larger ones through superior tactics and strategy. "This is the Battle of Thermopylae," Lisa explained, showing 300 Spartan warriors holding off a Persian army of hundreds of thousands. Terrain, tactics, and determination overcame overwhelming numbers. The hologram changed to show another battle. "This is Agincourt. English longbowmen defeated French heavy cavalry. The supposedly superior force was destroyed by enemies they had underestimated." More battles followed. David versus Goliath, the American Revolution, Vietnam, Afghanistan. Each one showed the same pattern, a smaller, weaker force defeating a larger. stronger one by refusing to fight on the enemy's terms. Commander Torres stood and began walking around the room as he spoke. The alien guards tracked his movement nervously. Every great military power in human history thought they were unbeatable. They had the best weapons, the most soldiers, the strongest defenses. They were all wrong. These are primitive conflicts, the Korath general protested. Ancient wars with simple weapons. Modern space combat is different, is it? Torres asked. He gestured to the hologram, which now showed space battles from more recent human history. Here's the Battle of Luna Station. Earth Defense Force destroyers defeated a Martian dreadnought fleet by using hit-and-run tactics. The big ships never got a chance to use their main guns. The aliens studied the display with growing unease. The human tactics were unlike anything in their military doctrine. Instead of meeting strength with strength, the humans used speed against size, flexibility against rigidity, unpredictability against standard procedures. Your species fight each other, the Nexari representative observed. Its energy form pulsing with confused colors. How do we know you will not fight us? Jake Harrison answered that question. Humans fight when we have to. But we prefer to win without fighting at all. The best victory is the one where your enemy surrenders before the battle begins. Dr. Morgan switched to a different display. This one showed economic data from across the galaxy. Trade flows, resource production, industrial capacity. All of it analyzed and mapped by human economists and strategic planners. Your civilizations are more fragile than they appear, Lisa said with academic detachment. The Korath Empire depends on automated mining systems that can be hacked. The Zephyrian hive worlds need constant food imports that travel predictable routes. The Nexari energy networks require rare materials that come from only a few sources. You're talking about attacking civilians. HFY clicked in horror. We're talking about economic warfare, Jake corrected. Disrupting supply chains. Interfering with communications. Making it impossible for your military forces to function effectively. Wars aren't won just by destroying ships. They're won by destroying the enemy's ability to keep fighting. The hologram showed human ships in deep space, far from any inhabited worlds. They looked like ordinary cargo vessels, but the technical specifications that appeared alongside them told a different story. These ships could manufacture weapons, build bases, repair damage, and operate independently for years without returning to port. Humans don't just fight differently, Torres explained. We supply ourselves differently. Our ships can operate independently in enemy territory for extended periods. We don't need massive supply lines or permanent bases. We can fight anywhere, anytime for as long as necessary. The implications were staggering. The alien powers had built their military strategies around controlling key systems and defending important worlds. But humans could strike anywhere and disappear before retaliation arrived. They could turn the galaxy's own infrastructure against it. This is terrorism, the Korath general accused. This is asymmetric warfare, Torres replied calmly. When you can't match your enemy's strengths, you find ways to make those strengths irrelevant. Dr. Morgan brought up another display, showing human research and development projects. Advanced propulsion systems, new weapons technologies, artificial intelligence programs, biotechnology applications. Humanity had been busy during their short time in space. The thing about humans is that we never stop improving, Lisa said. Every battle teaches us something new. Every defeat makes us stronger. Every victory shows us new possibilities. Right now, today, you probably have advantages over us, Jake admitted. Your ships are bigger. Your weapons are more powerful. Your defenses are stronger. But in 5 years? 10 years? 20 years? Will that still be true? The aliens looked at each other with growing despair. They were seeing the future of galactic warfare, and it looked nothing like what they were prepared for. Their massive fleets and powerful weapons meant nothing against enemies who refused to fight traditional battles. What do you want from us? HFY asked finally. We want what every species wants, Jake replied. Security for our people. Freedom to grow and prosper. Respect for our choices and our way of life. The same things you want for your own species. But you want them as equals, not as junior partners, the Nexari representative said. That's right, Jake confirmed. Humans don't make good servants. We tried that arrangement among ourselves for thousands of years. It never worked out well for anyone involved. Commander Torres stopped walking and faced the assembled alien representatives. Here's what you need to understand. We didn't come here to conquer the galaxy. We came here to join it. but we're going to join it as partners, not as subjects. And if we refuse? The Korath general asked. Jake Harrison looked around the room one more time. His calm green eyes met each alien gaze without flinching. Then you'll learn why humans are so good at asymmetric warfare. And trust me, that's not a lesson you want to learn the hard way. The room fell silent as the aliens absorbed this information. They had thought they were dealing with a primitive species that could be easily controlled. Instead, they were facing something far more dangerous. A species that had spent its entire history learning how to fight and win against superior opponents. Dr. Morgan closed her tablet and the holograms disappeared. We hope it doesn't come to that. Humans prefer cooperation to conflict, but we've learned that sometimes you have to be prepared for war in order to achieve peace. The choice is yours, Jake said simply. We've given you all the information you need to make an informed decision. Take your time. Think it through carefully, but remember this conversation when you're making up your minds. The three humans left the meeting room, leaving behind a group of alien representatives who finally understood what they were really dealing with. The galaxy's balance of power had just shifted, and there was no going back. The Galactic Council's emergency session stretched into its second day. In the secure chambers beneath the neutral station, military advisors from every major species worked frantically at computer terminals and holographic displays. They ran simulation after simulation, each one reaching the same terrible conclusion. High Counselor HFY stood before a massive display screen, showing the tactical analysis that human military experts had somehow produced in just a few days. His forearms moved nervously as he studied the data. Every weakness his species had was marked in red. Every defensive vulnerability was highlighted and explained. It was like looking at his own autopsy report. The humans are correct about our hive ships, the Zephyrian military commander reported, his mandibles clicking with distress. If they can coordinate simultaneous attacks on the power distribution nodes, our largest vessels would be helpless within minutes. Across the room, Korath military planners were reaching similar conclusions about their own forces. General Thakmor's scales had turned a sickly yellow color that showed deep worry. Our battle doctrine assumes we will fight other large fleets in open space. These human swarm tactics would render our main weapons useless. We would be shooting at targets too small and fast to hit effectively. The Nixari military analysis was equally disturbing. Their energy-based technology, which had made them dominant for centuries, had critical flaws that purely physical beings could exploit. The humans had found ways to disrupt their power systems and interfere with their energy manipulation abilities. How did they learn so much so quickly? Asked the representative from the hegemony worlds. We've been studying military science for thousands of years. They've been in space for less than a century, because they've been fighting each other for their entire history, replied Dr. Zektal, a Korath military scientist who specialized in alien warfare studies. Look at their historical records. They've fought more wars in the past 1,000 years than the rest of the galaxy combined. They've tried every possible way of killing each other and learned from every success and failure. The room fell quiet as the implications of that statement sank in. While the major galactic powers had been maintaining stable hierarchies and fighting occasional border conflicts, humanity had been perfecting the art of warfare through constant practice. But they're still just one species, protested an Nixari commander. Surely the combined might of all our civilizations could overwhelm them. General Thakmor's scales darkened further. That assumes we could coordinate our forces effectively. But look at these projections. The humans wouldn't give us time to organize a joint response. They would hit us separately, using our own distrust of each other against us. The tactical displays showed exactly how human forces could exploit the political tensions between the major powers. Quick strikes against Korath shipping would make them withdraw their fleets to protect their territory. Disrupting Zephyrian trade routes would force them to focus on domestic concerns. Interfering with Nixari energy networks would leave them unable to project power beyond their home systems. Divide and conquer, whispered High Counselor HFY. They would turn our strength into weakness by preventing us from working together. Dr. Zektal brought up another display showing human industrial capacity. There's something else you need to see. While we've been focused on their military capabilities, they've been building something unprecedented. The hologram showed the true scope of human expansion over the past 50 years. What had looked like random exploration and peaceful colonization revealed itself as the most sophisticated strategic positioning in galactic history. Every human world controlled a vital resource or strategic location. Every outpost was positioned to support military operations. Every seemingly innocent research station was actually a potential weapons manufacturing facility. They've been preparing for this confrontation since they first achieved spaceflight, Dr. Zechtel continued. Every decision they made, every world they settled, every treaty they signed was part of a larger plan. They've been building a war machine disguised as a peaceful civilization. The most disturbing revelation was humanity's manufacturing capability. Unlike the major galactic powers who relied on centralized production facilities, humans had distributed their industrial base across hundreds of worlds. Their ships could be built anywhere, using resources from multiple systems, making it impossible to cripple their military production with targeted strikes. Even if we destroyed Earth completely, it would barely affect their military capacity, reported a Zephyrian analyst. They've made themselves effectively indestructible as a civilization. General Thakmore pulled up the human economic data that Dr. Morgan had shared during their negotiations. Look at their resource consumption patterns. They're not just building for defense, they're building for expansion. These production figures suggest they could support a fleet 10 times larger than anything they currently have. Which means what we've seen so far is just the beginning. HFY realized with growing horror. The military advisors had spent 2 days trying to find a way to defeat the humans through conventional warfare. Every scenario ended in disaster for the galactic powers. The humans had advantages in mobility, production capacity, tactical flexibility, and strategic positioning. Worse, they had shown they understood their enemies' weaknesses better than those enemies understood themselves. What about economic warfare? Suggested a Nexari strategist. Cut off their trade, isolate them diplomatically, force them to surrender through economic pressure. Dr. Zechtel shook his head. Look at their trade data. They're almost completely self-sufficient. They don't need our markets or our resources. In fact, a trade war would hurt us more than it would hurt them. They've positioned themselves as suppliers of rare materials that several of our civilizations depend on. Blockade their worlds? Suggested another voice. With what? General Thakmore asked bitterly. They've shown they can track and target any fleet we send. Our ships would be destroyed before they could establish an effective blockade. Nuclear weapons? Planet killers? They have the same weapons we do, plus delivery systems we can't defend against. A war of mutual destruction benefits no one. The room fell into grim silence as the reality of the situation became clear. The humans had not just prepared for war, they had prepared for every possible kind of war and positioned themselves to win all of them. High Counselor HFY finally spoke the words that everyone in the room was thinking. We cannot defeat them militarily. Then what do we do? Asked the Nexari representative. Before anyone could answer, an aide rushed into the room carrying an urgent message. The humans have requested another meeting. They say they have additional information to share. The alien leaders looked at each other with dread. If what they had already seen was not everything the humans knew, what else might be revealed? They're not done teaching us, HFY realized. This was just the introduction to the course. They have more lessons prepared. General Thakmore's scales had gone completely gray, the Korath color for despair. What kind of species plans this thoroughly for war while claiming they want peace? Dr. Zechtel answered that question with grim certainty. A species that has learned the hard way that the best guarantee of peace is being so prepared for war that no one wants to fight you. As the alien leaders prepared for another confrontation with the human negotiators, they understood that the galaxy had already changed. The old order, where established powers dictated terms to newcomers, was over. The humans had not asked permission to join galactic civilization as equals. They had simply announced their arrival and demonstrated why resistance was futile. The only question left was whether the transition to the new reality would happen peacefully or not. And that choice the humans had made clear was entirely up to the aliens. The main meeting hall felt different when the aliens gathered for what they hoped would be the final session with the human negotiators. The confident superiority that had filled the room just days before was gone, replaced by nervous tension and barely controlled fear. Jake Harrison entered with his usual calm composure, but there was something different about him too. The polite diplomat was still there, but underneath it the aliens could sense something harder and more dangerous. Dr. Morgan and Commander Torres followed behind him, carrying more equipment than they had brought to previous meetings. High Counselor HFY spoke first, his mandibles clicking with barely controlled anxiety. You said you had additional information to share with us. That's right, Jake confirmed, taking his position in the center of the room. We've been having very productive conversations over the past few days, but there are some things we haven't discussed yet. Important things. Dr. Morgan activated multiple devices simultaneously. The air above the meeting hall filled with holographic displays showing data that made the aliens step backward in alarm. This was not tactical analysis or economic information. This was something much more personal and much more threatening. We've been studying more than just your military capabilities and economic systems, Lisa said with that same cheerful academic tone that had become so frightening. We've also been studying your species themselves. The displays showed detailed biological and psychological profiles of every major alien race. Zephyrian physiology with emphasis on vulnerable nerve clusters. Korath anatomy highlighting weak points in their natural armor. Nexari energy patterns with notes about disruption frequencies. Every strength and weakness of every species was cataloged and analyzed. Your medical records are fascinating, Lisa continued conversationally. Did you know that Zephyrian exoskeletons have a critical structural weakness at the joint connections? A properly applied sonic frequency can cause complete skeletal collapse. HFY's forearms wrapped protectively around his torso as he stared at biological diagrams that showed exactly how to cripple or kill members of his species. Korath scales provide excellent protection against energy weapons, Lisa went on, but they're vulnerable to certain chemical compounds that could be easily synthesized and deployed as aerosol weapons. General Thakmore's scales turned white with terror as he saw detailed chemical formulas for substances that could dissolve his people's natural defenses. And Nexari energy forms can be disrupted by electromagnetic fields of specific frequencies and amplitudes, Lisa concluded. The right pulse could force you back into physical matter, probably killing you in the process. The Nexari representative's glow dimmed to almost nothing as it contemplated the implications of what it was hearing. Commander Torres stepped forward, and his movement caused every alien guard in the room to reach for weapons they suddenly realized might be useless. Humans have been fighting biological warfare for thousands of years. We understand how to create diseases, toxins, and environmental hazards that target specific genetic markers. The holographic displays changed to show research facilities on human worlds, laboratories where scientists worked with dangerous materials, manufacturing plants that could produce chemical and biological weapons in massive quantities, all of it presented with clinical detachment as if they were discussing weather patterns. Of course, we would never actually use such weapons, Jake said with a smile that fooled no one. Humans are civilized people. We prefer clean, honorable solutions to our problems. But you have them, whispered the representative from the hegemony worlds. We have the capability to produce them if necessary, Jake corrected. There's a difference. Dr. Morgan switched to another set of displays. These showed something even more disturbing. Detailed intelligence about alien homeworlds. Population centers, industrial facilities, government buildings, critical infrastructure, all of it mapped and analyzed with the same thoroughness they had applied to military targets. Your civilizations have become very centralized over the millennia, Lisa observed. Most species have a few key worlds that control everything else. Remove those worlds from the equation, and entire interstellar empires would collapse. You're talking about genocide, HFY accused, his voice shaking with horror. We're talking about strategic analysis, Jake replied calmly, understanding how systems work and how they can be disrupted. Knowledge is just knowledge. What matters is how you choose to use it. The displays showed human intelligence networks spread throughout alien space, sleeper agents, monitoring stations, communication intercepts. For decades, while the major powers thought they were observing and evaluating humanity, humans had been doing the same thing to them on a much more sophisticated level. Every time you sent observers to human worlds, we learned about your intelligence methods, Torres explained. Every time you tested our defenses, we studied your attack patterns. Every time you tried to gather information about us, we gathered better information about you. How long? Asked the Nexari representative, its voice barely audible through its suit's speakers. How long what? Jake asked politely. How long have you been planning to destroy us? Jake's expression grew serious for the first time since the negotiations began. We're not planning to destroy anyone. We're planning to survive. There's a difference. Dr. Morgan brought up historical data from human civilization, wars, conquests, genocides, and extinctions. The long, bloody record of what happened when one group of humans decided another group was a threat that needed to be eliminated. Humans have experience with extinction events, Lisa said quietly. We've caused them and we've survived them. We know how civilizations die and we know how they endure. Most importantly, we know the difference between a threat that can be negotiated with and a threat that has to be destroyed. The implications of that statement hit the aliens like physical blows. The humans were not just prepared to fight a war, they were prepared to fight a war of extinction if necessary. They had the weapons, the strategy, and the ruthless experience needed to eliminate entire species. Commander Torres walked slowly around the room, his eyes meeting each alien representative in turn. The question you need to ask yourselves is simple. Do you want to be our partners or do you want to be our problems? Because humans are very good at solving problems, Jake added softly. The room fell into absolute silence as the aliens absorbed what they had heard. These peaceful diplomats had just revealed themselves to be something far more dangerous than any conqueror the galaxy had ever seen. Conquerors wanted to rule. These humans were prepared to exterminate if they felt threatened enough. High Counselor HFY found his voice first. What do you want from us? The same thing we've always wanted, Jake replied. To be accepted as equals. To trade freely. To explore and grow and prosper. To live in peace with our neighbors. And if we refuse? Jake Harrison looked around the room one more time, his green eyes as calm and cold as winter seas. Then you'll discover what humans are capable of when peace is no longer an option. And I promise you, that's not a discovery you want to make. Dr. Morgan deactivated her devices and the terrifying displays vanished, leaving the aliens alone with their fears and their imaginations. We'll give you time to discuss this among yourselves, Jake said, returning to his diplomatic politeness. Take all the time you need. But remember, every day you delay making a decision is another day we continue our preparations. The three humans left the meeting hall, leaving behind a group of alien representatives who finally understood the true meaning of the phrase they had heard from other species. Humanity, oh yeah. It was not just a boast about human achievements. It was a warning about human capabilities. And now the galaxy's major powers had to decide whether they wanted to work with those capabilities or against them. The emergency council session lasted through another long night. In the secure chambers beneath the neutral station, the most powerful beings in the galaxy faced a decision that would determine the future of interstellar civilization. High Counselor HFY stood at the head of a long table surrounded by representatives from every major species. The holographic displays around the room showed all the data the humans had shared: military vulnerabilities, economic weaknesses, biological susceptibilities, and strategic intelligence that should have been impossible to obtain. We have three options, HFY announced to the assembled leaders. We can accept the humans as equal partners. We can attempt to destroy them before they become too powerful, or we can try to contain them through diplomatic and economic means. General Thakmore's scales were still the gray color of despair. The military option is suicide. Our own analysts confirm that the humans can defeat us in conventional warfare. And if we push them too hard, they've made it clear they're prepared for unconventional warfare that would destroy us all. What about a preemptive strike? Suggested the representative from the hegemony worlds. Hit their colonies simultaneously before they can respond. Dr. Zektal, the Korath military scientist, shook his head firmly. We've analyzed that scenario extensively. The humans have distributed their population and infrastructure across too many worlds. Even if we destroyed half their colonies, the remainder would have enough industrial capacity to build a retaliatory fleet that would devastate our home systems. The Nexari representative pulsed with frustrated red energy. They cannot be that prepared. No species achieves this level of strategic positioning by accident. That's exactly the point, replied Dr. Zektal. Nothing the humans have done has been by accident. Every colony placement, every trade agreement, every diplomatic contact has been part of a plan that spans decades. They've been preparing for this confrontation since they first reached the stars. High Counselor HFY activated a display showing human expansion patterns over the past 50 years. Look at this data with new eyes. What we thought was random exploration was actually careful strategic positioning. What we thought was peaceful settlement was actually military base construction. What we thought was naive diplomacy was actually intelligence gathering. The pattern was undeniable once you knew how to look for it. Human colonies controlled every major hyperlane junction in their region of space. Human trading posts monitored traffic through critical shipping routes. Human research stations gathered intelligence on alien military movements and technological developments. They've been playing a different game than the rest of us, HFY continued. While we were focused on maintaining the status quo, they were positioning themselves to change it fundamentally. So what do we do? Asked a representative from the smaller powers. If we can't fight them and we can't contain them, are we supposed to just surrender? Not surrender, corrected Dr. Zektal. Adapt. The humans have shown us that the old ways of doing things no longer work. The galaxy is changing whether we want it to or not. General Thakmor activated his own display, showing comparative industrial and population data. Look at the numbers objectively. Human population growth is exponential. Their industrial capacity doubles every few years. Their technological advancement is accelerating. In 20 years, they won't need to negotiate with us at all. They'll be strong enough to dictate terms, which means this is our last chance to influence the outcome, HFY realized. If we negotiate now, we can at least have a say in what the new galactic order looks like. If we wait, we'll have to accept whatever the humans decide to impose. The Nexari representative dimmed further as it contemplated this reality. You're saying we should surrender to avoid being conquered later. I'm saying we should choose partnership over subjugation, HFY replied. The humans have made it clear they prefer cooperation to conflict. But they've also made it clear they're prepared for conflict if cooperation isn't possible. What do we know about human behavior when they win? Asked another representative. How do they treat defeated enemies? Dr. Zektal brought up historical data from human civilization. Their track record is mixed. Sometimes they're generous victors who help rebuild defeated enemies. Sometimes they're ruthless conquerors who eliminate threats completely. The difference seems to depend on how the defeated enemies behave during the conflict. Meaning what? Meaning that species who surrender quickly and cooperate fully tend to be treated well. Species who fight to the bitter end and force the humans to pay a high price for victory tend to be eliminated entirely. The room fell quiet as the implications of that statement sank in. The humans were offering them a choice, but it was a limited-time offer. Resist too long or too hard, and the offer might be withdrawn permanently. High Counselor HFY looked around the table at the representatives of civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. We need to face facts. The age of our dominance is ending. The question is whether we end it gracefully or whether we're ended by force. What are the terms they're offering? Asked the hegemony representative. HFY activated another display showing the formal proposal the humans had submitted. Full partnership in galactic affairs. Equal representation on the Galactic Council. Open trade and technology exchange. Mutual defense agreements. And most importantly, recognition of human sovereignty over their existing territory, and that's more generous than I expected, admitted General Thakmor. It's generous because they're negotiating from a position of strength, Dr. Zektal pointed out. They don't need to make harsh demands. They can afford to be magnanimous because everyone knows they have other options if this doesn't work out. The Nexari representative pulsed with worried yellow light. What guarantees do we have that they'll honor these agreements? What's to stop them from making more demands once they're officially recognized as equals? What's to stop us from making more demands now? HFY countered. The same thing that stops any interstellar power from breaking agreements. The knowledge that doing so would lead to war, and war would be costly for everyone involved. Except the humans have shown they're better prepared for war than anyone else, the hegemony representative pointed out. Exactly, which means they have less reason to break agreements and more reason to honor them. They can afford to be trustworthy because they don't need to cheat to get what they want. General Thakmor's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue color. There's another consideration. If we accept them as partners now, we might be able to influence their development. Work with them instead of against them. Learn from them. Learn what? Asked the Nexari representative. How they became so effective so quickly. How they planned so far ahead. How they turn apparent weaknesses into strategic advantages. If we're going to share the galaxy with them, we need to understand how they think. High Counselor HFY stood up slowly, his forearms spread in a gesture of formal decision. I'm going to recommend that the Zephyrian Empire accept the human proposal. They've demonstrated that they have the power to take what they want by force. The fact that they're offering to share instead shows a level of restraint we should respect and reciprocate. One by one, the other representatives came to the same conclusion. The Korath Empire would accept the humans as equals, rather than risk extinction fighting them. The Nexari Collective would choose partnership over annihilation. The smaller powers would follow the lead of the major ones, as they always had. Then it's decided, HFY announced. We'll formally accept humanity as a full member of galactic civilization. May the ancestors forgive us if this proves to be a mistake. As the alien leaders prepared to return to the meeting hall and deliver their decision, none of them noticed the small human monitoring device that had been recording their entire conversation. Jake Harrison and his team already knew what the aliens had decided before the formal announcement was made. The humans had been prepared for any outcome. But they were pleased that the outcome would be peaceful. After all, cooperation was always preferable to conquest, even when conquest was possible. The formal ceremony took place in the main meeting hall of the neutral station, witnessed by representatives from dozens of species throughout the galaxy. Jake Harrison stood at the center of the room, no longer just a human ambassador, but now humanity's first official representative to the Galactic Council. High Counselor HFY stepped forward, his forearms carrying the ceremonial document that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. His mandibles clicked as he spoke the ancient words that had been used to welcome new species for over 1,000 years. The Galactic Council recognizes humanity as a sovereign, star-faring civilization, with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities thereof. Welcome to the community of worlds. Jake accepted the document with the same calm dignity he had shown throughout the negotiations. But now there was something different in his eyes. The polite diplomat was still there, but underneath it was the satisfied look of someone who had achieved exactly what they had set out to accomplish. On behalf of humanity, I accept this recognition, Jake replied formally. We look forward to a long and productive relationship with all member species. Dr. Lisa Morgan stood beside him, her tablet now displaying technical specifications for the new treaties and trade agreements that would govern human interaction with galactic civilization. After days of showing the aliens their vulnerabilities and weaknesses, she was finally sharing information about human capabilities that would benefit everyone. Commander Rick Torres remained alert and watchful, but his posture had relaxed slightly. The mission was complete. The objectives had been achieved. Humanity was now an official equal in galactic affairs, and the transition had been accomplished without bloodshed. The ceremony continued with speeches from representatives of the major powers. Each one welcomed humanity to galactic civilization and expressed hope for peaceful cooperation. But anyone listening carefully would have noticed the undertone of nervous respect in their voices. General Thakmor spoke for the Korath Empire. The Korath recognize human martial prowess and strategic wisdom. We look forward to learning from each other in the arts of war and peace. The Nexari representative pulsed with diplomatic blue light as it offered its species welcome. The Nexari Collective acknowledges human innovation and adaptability. We anticipate beneficial exchanges of knowledge and technology. Even the smaller powers offered their congratulations and support. The Hegemony Worlds, the Trade Federation, the Independent Systems Alliance, all of them understood that the galaxy had changed, and they needed to adapt to the new reality. When the formal ceremony ended, the real work began. Human diplomats and technical experts spread throughout the station, meeting with their alien counterparts to negotiate the hundreds of detailed agreements that would govern everything from trade routes to technology transfers to military cooperation. Dr. Morgan found herself in high demand as species after species requested meetings to discuss joint research projects, the biological and technological innovations that humanity had developed during their rapid expansion were of great interest to civilizations that had been using the same technologies for centuries. Commander Torres was equally popular with military representatives who wanted to understand human tactical doctrines and strategic planning methods. The art of asymmetric warfare that humanity had perfected was something every species wanted to learn, even if they hoped never to use it. But it was Jake Harrison who drew the most attention. Every major power wanted private meetings with the human who had orchestrated this entire diplomatic revolution. They wanted to understand how he had planned so far ahead and anticipated their responses so accurately. In a private meeting with High Counselor HFY, Jake finally revealed some of the thinking behind humanity's approach. The thing about humans is that we've been dealing with this situation for our entire history. How do you get powerful groups to accept you as an equal when they think you're beneath them? And what did you learn? HFY asked, genuinely curious. That you can't ask for equality. You have to demonstrate that you deserve it. And if asking doesn't work, you have to be prepared to take it by force. But you didn't want war. Nobody wants war, Jake replied. But sometimes the threat of war is the only thing that makes peace possible. We showed you what would happen if you forced us to fight. That made you realize it was better to accept us as partners. HFY clicked thoughtfully. You manipulated us into making the decision you wanted. We gave you accurate information and let you make informed choices, Jake corrected. There's a difference. We could have lied or deceived you, but that would have created problems later. Better to be completely honest about our capabilities and let you decide how to respond. And if we had chosen war, Jake's expression grew serious. Then we would have fought and won, but the cost would have been enormous for everyone involved. We're much happier with this outcome. In the days that followed the formal recognition ceremony, human ships began arriving at major trading stations throughout the galaxy. The industrial products and raw materials that human colonies had been stockpiling were finally released into galactic markets. The economic impact was immediate and significant. Human manufacturing techniques, refined through decades of rapid expansion and resource scarcity, proved more efficient than traditional alien methods. Human agricultural products, adapted for growth on marginal worlds, opened up new possibilities for planetary development. Human technology, designed for flexibility and adaptability, offered solutions to problems that had puzzled alien engineers for centuries. But perhaps most importantly, human strategic and tactical expertise was now available to help defend galactic civilization against external threats. The same skills that had been so frightening when turned against the established powers became valuable assets when directed toward mutual protection. 6 months after the recognition ceremony, the first joint human-alien military exercise took place near the Galactic Rim. A simulated pirate fleet attacked a convoy of mixed ships using traditional raider tactics. The human officers coordinating the defense demonstrated how proper intelligence, flexible tactics, and coordinated response could turn a potential disaster into a complete victory. The alien commanders who participated came away with a new understanding of human military doctrine and a deep appreciation for why resistance had been futile. Humans did not just fight harder or with better weapons. They fought smarter, using every advantage and exploiting every weakness. 1 year after the negotiations at the neutral station, Ambassador Jake Harrison stood once again in the main meeting hall of what was now called the Galactic Cooperation Council. The name change reflected the new reality of shared power and mutual respect among member species. The agenda for today's meeting included routine matters of trade regulation and resource allocation. But it also included discussion of expansion into unexplored regions of the galaxy, joint research projects that would have been impossible without human participation, and defensive preparations against potential threats from outside their region of space. Any other business? Jake asked, now serving as the rotating council chairman for this session. High Counselor HFY raised one of his 4 arms. I have a question for our human colleagues. Now that you have achieved your goals and gained recognition as equals, what are your long-term intentions? What does humanity want from the galaxy? Jake Harrison smiled, and this time the expression was genuinely warm rather than diplomatically polite. The same thing we've always wanted, Counselor. Room to grow, freedom to explore, the chance to learn and discover and build something better than what came before. And if you encounter other species who challenge your expansion, then we'll offer them the same choice we offered you, Jake replied simply. Partnership or competition? Cooperation or conflict? We prefer partnership, but we're prepared for either outcome. Dr. Morgan looked up from her data tablets. The galaxy is a big place. There's room for everyone who's willing to share it peacefully. Commander Torres, now wearing the insignia of the Joint Defense Forces, added his perspective. Humans fight when we have to, but we'd rather build than destroy. We'd rather explore than conquer. We'd rather make friends than enemies. But you're still prepared for war if peace isn't possible, HFY observed. Always, Jake confirmed. That's what guarantees the peace. Everyone knows that attacking humanity means facing an enemy that's prepared for anything and willing to do whatever it takes to survive. As the council session ended and the representatives dispersed to their various duties, the aliens reflected on how much their galaxy had changed in such a short time. The humans had kept their promises about partnership and cooperation. Trade flourished. Technology advanced. Exploration expanded into new regions of space, but everyone understood the lesson that humanity had taught them. When humans sent ambassadors, it did mean peace, but it was a peace backed by the absolute certainty that any attempt to break that peace would be met with overwhelming and ruthless response. The galaxy had learned to respect humanity not because humans were peaceful, but because they were so thoroughly prepared for war that peace was the only sensible option. It was a lesson that would be remembered for generations to come, long after Jake Harrison and his diplomatic team had returned to Earth as hero.